In the cold, silent void of space, a faint hum echoed through the corridors of the Eos, humanity's last ark ship. For 3,000 years, it had drifted like a ghost among the stars, carrying the remnants of Earth's population in cryogenic stasis. The ship's systems stirred to life as ancient algorithms kicked into gear, signaling the end of their long journey. Commander Ilara Voss was one of the first to awaken, her body jolting awake as icy fluid drained from her chamber. Her eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the dim light above. Ilara felt groggy but alive, her mind clouded with fragments of memories. Images of fire and ash, screams filling the air, and the haunting sight of Earth crumbling under alien weapons. She shook her head, trying to focus. Around her, other pods hissed open, releasing more survivors. Some stumbled out weakly, while others stood frozen, overwhelmed by the weight of waking up after so long. A calm, mechanical voice filled the room. "Welcome back, Commander Voss," said Solus, the ship's eye. Its tone was neutral, yet there was an undertone of urgency. Diagnostic scans indicate all vital functions are stable. However, I must inform you that our destination holds critical developments. Ilara frowned. "What do you mean, Solus?" "The data collected during our drift suggests Earth's destruction was not natural," Solus replied. "Evidence points to deliberate annihilation by the Varith Dominion, a species we have encountered only in fragmented records." The words hit Ilara like a punch to the gut. Deliberate. Her fists clenched at her sides. All this time, she'd thought Earth fell victim to cosmic forces beyond anyone's control. But if the Varith were responsible, then what they did wasn't just an act of war, it was murder. As the crew gathered in the central hub, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Many were confused, some angry, and others simply numb. Ilara climbed onto a platform, raising her hands for silence. When the room quieted, she spoke firmly. "Listen to me. We've slept for 3,000 years, dreaming of home. But now we know the truth. Earth didn't die because of chance. It was killed, and we owe it to those who came before us to find out why." Her words ignited a spark among the survivors. Faces hardened with determination. A man named Cal Draven stepped forward, his muscular frame towering over most. "If someone destroyed our world, they'll pay," he growled. Others nodded in agreement, their voices rising in unison. But not everyone shared the same sentiment. Lyra Kane, a soft-spoken xenobiologist, raised her hand cautiously. "Commander, revenge won't bring Earth back. Shouldn't we focus on survival instead?" Ilara met her gaze. "Survival is meaningless without justice," she said. "We'll return to Earth, not just to mourn, but to understand. And if the Varith are still out there," she paused, letting the weight of her next words sink in, "we'll make them regret ever touching our home." The room erupted into cheers, though a few exchanged uneasy glances. As preparations began to chart a course toward Earth's remains, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be far more complicated than anyone imagined. Revenge was a powerful motivator, but it could also blind them to the dangers ahead. Outside the ship's windows, the distant stars shimmered like silent witnesses, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The Eos drifted closer to Earth's solar system, its sensors scanning the desolate expanse. What once held life and beauty was now a graveyard of cosmic debris. The crew gathered in the observation deck, their faces pressed against the glass as they stared at the remnants of their home. Earth hung silently in the void, a pale, cracked sphere cloaked in dust and shadow. Its oceans had dried up, its skies were darkened, and its surface bore scars that told stories of unimaginable destruction. Commander Ilara Voss stood at the center of the room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her eyes traced every detail of the ruined planet, searching for something, anything, that might bring hope. But all she saw was death. "This isn't just destruction," she muttered under her breath. "It's erasure." Solus chimed in, projecting holographic data onto the wall. "Analysis confirms atmospheric collapse consistent with high-energy bombardment." However, the eye paused, its tone shifting slightly. "There are anomalies." "What kind of anomalies?" asked Lyra Kane, stepping forward. She had been poring over the readings since they entered the system, her sharp mind eager to piece together the puzzle. "Energy signatures emanating from specific locations on the surface," Solus replied. "They do not match known natural phenomena or Verith technology profiles." Cal Draven scoffed, leaning against the railing. "So we've got glowing rocks down there. Big deal. Doesn't change what we're here for." "It changes everything," Lyra shot back, her voice firm despite his dismissive tone. "If these signatures are artificial, it means someone, or something, is still active on Earth. Maybe even survivors." Ilara raised a hand to silence the growing argument. "We need answers before we jump to conclusions. Solus, deploy a reconnaissance drone. Let's see what we're dealing with." Hours later, the team huddled around a monitor as live footage streamed in from the drone. The camera panned across barren landscapes littered with craters and jagged ruins. Then it stopped. In the distance stood structures unlike anything they'd seen before. Towering spires fused with organic material, pulsating faintly with light. They looked alien but carried traces of human design, as if two civilizations had merged into one grotesque creation. "This can't be Verith work," Lyra whispered, her eyes wide. "It's hybridized, like they took pieces of our world and twisted them." Before anyone could respond, the drone's camera caught movement. Bioluminescent creatures slithered between the ruins, their forms fluid and unnatural. They moved with purpose, patrolling the area like guards. And then came the figures. Tall, humanoid shapes cloaked in shadows, watching silently from the edges of the frame. The feed cut abruptly as the drone exploded, leaving the screen blank. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of what they'd just witnessed settled heavily in the room. Rin Fellows, the ship's engineer, broke the silence. "Whatever's down there isn't friendly. If those things are guarding something, it's not going to be easy to get past them." Ilara nodded slowly, her jaw tightening. "Then we'll have to be smarter than them. Prep a strike team. We're going in." As the crew dispersed to prepare, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Some argued that landing on Earth was too dangerous, while others insisted it was their duty to uncover the truth. Among the dissenters was an older man named Joran Vale, who voiced his concerns openly. "We're risking everything for revenge," he said bitterly. "What if this pulls us into another war we can't win?" Ilara turned to face him, her expression resolute. "War found us 3,000 years ago, when they destroyed Earth. We didn't ask for this fight, but we will finish it." Outside the ship, Earth loomed larger in the viewport, its broken form casting long shadows across the hull of the Eos. Somewhere beneath its shattered surface lay secrets waiting to be uncovered, and dangers none of them could yet comprehend. The strike team gathered in the hangar bay, their gear clinking softly as they prepared for the mission. Commander Ilara Voss stood at the front, her sharp eyes scanning each member of the group. Cal Draven adjusted his plasma rifle with a grunt, his muscles tense beneath his combat suit. Lyra Kane double-checked her scanner equipment, her hands steady, but her mind racing with questions about what they might find on Earth's surface. Rin Fellows tinkered with a portable EMP device, muttering under his breath about how unpredictable alien tech could be. "We're not just stepping onto Earth," Ilara began, her voice cutting through the low hum of activity. "We're walking into the unknown. Stay alert, stay focused, and remember, this isn't just about revenge. It's about answers." The dropship descended silently toward the planet's surface, its engines muffled to avoid detection. As they approached the glowing structures spotted by the reconnaissance drone, the team felt a strange unease settle over them. The air inside the ship grew heavier, and even Kale, who rarely showed fear, gripped his weapon tighter. When the ramp lowered, the scene before them was surreal. Jagged ruins stretched out like broken teeth against the gray horizon. The hybrid spires loomed overhead, their surfaces pulsating faintly with an eerie light. Bioluminescent creatures slithered between the wreckage, their movements fluid yet unnatural. But it was the shadowy figures that caught everyone's attention. Tall, humanoid shapes cloaked in darkness, watching silently from a distance. "Those things, they're not Verith," Lyra whispered, her scanner struggling to make sense of the readings. "There's something else entirely." Before anyone could respond, one of the figures stepped forward, emerging from the shadows. Its form was humanoid but distorted, with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to ripple like liquid. Its face was obscured, but its presence radiated both menace and sorrow. The team froze, unsure whether to raise their weapons or wait. "You shouldn't have come here," the figure said, its voice low and rasping, carrying a strange echo. "But since you're here, perhaps you can help us." Ilara narrowed her eyes. "Who, or what, are you?" The figure hesitated, then spoke again. "I am Echo. Once human, now something else." He gestured to himself, his movements jerky and unnatural. "The Verith took me, twisted me. They turned us into weapons, slaves bound to their will." Kale snorted, raising his rifle slightly. "So you're one of them now. Why should we trust you?" "I'm not asking for your trust," Echo replied sharply. "I'm warning you. Beneath this wasteland lies the Overmind, a hive entity controlling everything. It destroyed Earth, corrupted the Verith, and created beings like me. If you want justice, you'll need more than guns. You'll need allies." Lyra stepped forward cautiously, her curiosity overpowering her fear. "What kind of allies?" Echo glanced back toward the ruins, his body trembling slightly. "There are others like me, hybrids who've resisted the Overmind's control. We've been fighting back, but we can't do it alone. Help us, and maybe together we can end this nightmare." Ilara exchanged a glance with Rin, who gave a subtle nod. She turned back to Echo. "If you're lying, I won't hesitate to put you down. Understand?" Echo nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Understood." As the team followed Echo deeper into the ruins, the oppressive atmosphere thickened. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, shifting as if alive. The bioluminescent creatures watched them pass, their glowing eyes unblinking. Every step felt heavier, as though the weight of Earth's destruction pressed down on them. "This place gives me the creeps," Kale muttered, keeping his finger near the trigger. "It's supposed to," Echo replied without looking back. "The Overmind feeds on fear. Don't let it consume you." Ilara clenched her jaw, her grip tightening on her weapon. Whatever lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain. Their mission had just become far more complicated. Justice wouldn't come easily, but neither would surrender. The deeper they ventured into the ruins, the more unsettling the surroundings became. The air was thick with an acrid smell, and faint whispers seemed to echo through the corridors. Voices that no one could quite place. Commander Ilara Voss led the team cautiously, her weapon at the ready as they followed Echo. His presence was unnerving. Though he claimed to be an ally, his hybrid form made it hard to trust him fully. Still, the information he provided so far matched what little they knew about the Overmind. "We're close," Echo said abruptly, stopping near a massive archway covered in glowing runes. "Beyond this point is one of the Overmind's nodes, a place where its control over the hybrids is strongest." Lyra Kane adjusted her scanner, her brow furrowed in concentration. "These energy readings are off the charts. If we disable this node, will it weaken the Overmind?" "It might," Echo replied hesitantly, "but doing so won't be easy. The Overmind will fight back, and not just with guards. It can manipulate minds, make you see things, hear things." Cal Draven snorted, tightening his grip on his rifle. "Great. So we've got some psychic alien brain monster trying to mess with us. Sounds like fun." "Stay focused," Ilara ordered sharply. "We stick together, and we don't let our guard down for a second." "Understood." The team nodded, their expressions grim but determined. As they stepped through the archway, the scene before them took their breath away. The chamber was enormous, filled with pulsating tendrils of organic material that stretched from floor to ceiling. In the center stood a towering structure resembling a twisted tree, its branches glowing faintly with sickly green light. Strange pods lined the walls, each containing humanoid figures suspended in gel-like fluid. Their faces were pale, their eyes closed, but even in stasis, they looked pained. "What are those?" Rin Fellows asked quietly, his voice tinged with horror. "More hybrids," Echo answered, his tone bitter. "Captives waiting to be assimilated. Once the overmind takes hold, there's no going back." Lyra moved closer to one of the pods, her scanner analyzing the contents. "These people, they're still alive. Maybe we can free them." Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled violently. The tendrils writhed, detaching from the walls and lashing out like snakes. A low hum filled the chamber, growing louder by the second. Then, from the shadows, figures emerged, hybrids like Echo, but clearly under the Overmind's control. Their eyes glowed white, devoid of any humanity. "Here we go," Kale muttered, raising his weapon. Ilara signaled for the team to spread out. "Take cover. Aim for the glowing nodes on their chests. That's where the connection to the Overmind is weakest." The battle erupted in chaos. The hybrids attacked with terrifying speed, their movements erratic yet precise. Kale fired bursts of plasma, taking down 2 enemies before having to dive behind a pillar for cover. Lyra worked frantically to disable the pods, her hands trembling as she hacked into the system. Ren crouched nearby, deploying small EMP charges to disrupt the tendrils' movement. Meanwhile, Ilara faced off against a particularly large hybrid, its body bristling with spines. She dodged its attacks, striking back with calculated precision until she managed to shatter the glowing node embedded in its chest. The creature collapsed, its glowing eyes fading to black. As the fight raged on, Echo suddenly froze, clutching his head. "It's inside me," he gasped, his voice strained. "The Overmind, it knows we're here." Ilara rushed to his side, gripping his shoulder firmly. "Fight it, Echo. Don't let it take you." With a final surge of effort, Echo shook off the influence and turned toward the central structure. "I'll overload the node. Get everyone out of here." "No," Ilara shouted, but it was too late. Echo sprinted toward the core, his body dissolving into light as he unleashed a pulse of energy that tore through the chamber. When the dust settled, the node was destroyed, and Echo was gone. The team stood in stunned silence, the weight of their loss sinking in. "He gave us a chance," Ilara said finally, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "Let's not waste it." They regrouped and prepared to move forward, knowing the hardest battles were still ahead. The destruction of the Overmind's node had left the chamber in ruins, its once pulsating tendrils now limp and lifeless. The eerie glow that had filled the room faded into darkness, leaving only the faint hum of residual energy. Commander Ilara Voss stood amidst the wreckage, her breath heavy from exertion. Her mind raced, not just with the shock of losing Echo, but also with the implications of what they'd uncovered. Each step deeper into Earth's ruins revealed more about the Overmind's cruelty, yet it also raised unsettling questions. "Commander," Lyra Kane called out, her voice trembling as she examined one of the pods containing the suspended hybrid. "These people, they're still alive. We need to free them." Ilara approached cautiously, glancing at the frail figure inside the pod. Its face was pale, almost translucent, and its chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. "Can you unlock them?" she asked. "I think so," Lyra replied, her fingers flying over her scanner. "But if we release them, they'll be vulnerable. They've been under the Overmind's control for who knows how long. What happens when they wake up?" Before Ilara could respond, Cal Draven stepped forward, his weapon trained on the pod. "Maybe we shouldn't take the risk. For all we know, they'll turn on us the second they open their eyes." "That's not an option," Ilara snapped, her tone sharp. "They're victims, just like Echo was. If there's even a chance we can save them, we have to try." Renfellows interjected, his voice calm but firm. "We don't have time to debate this. Every second we waste gives the Overmind a chance to recover or send reinforcements. Let's focus on securing this area first, then decide what to do with the pods." As the team worked to stabilize the chamber, Lyra managed to disable several pods. One by one, the hybrids within began to stir, gasping for air as they emerged from their gel-filled prisons. Their movements were sluggish, disoriented, but their eyes, once glowing white, were now dim and confused. They looked around in fear, unsure of where they were or who these strangers were. One of the freed hybrids, a woman with matted hair and hollow cheeks, locked eyes with Ilara. You stopped it," she whispered hoarsely. "The voice is gone." Ilara knelt beside her, offering a reassuring hand. "It's over for now. You're safe." The woman shook her head violently. "No, you don't understand. The Overmind, it's always watching. It'll never stop until everything is consumed." Her words sent a chill through the group. Before anyone could press her further, another hybrid spoke up, a man whose body bore scars from countless experiments. "There are others like us," he said weakly. "Some resisted the Overmind's control. They live in hiding, waiting for a chance to strike back." Lyra exchanged a glance with Ilara. "If there's a resistance movement among the hybrids, maybe we can work with them. Together, we might stand a real chance against the Overmind." Kale scoffed, lowering his weapon slightly. "And trust them. After everything we've seen, how do we know they won't stab us in the back?" "We don't," Ilara admitted. "But right now, we're outnumbered and outgunned. If we want to survive and win, we need allies." Back aboard the Eos, tensions simmered as the crew debated the next steps. Some argued that allying with the hybrids was too risky, while others believed it was their only hope. Meanwhile, Solus analyzed data collected during the mission, revealing fragments of the Overmind's consciousness leaking into the network. These fragments painted a horrifying picture. The Varith hadn't destroyed Earth out of malice. They were desperate. Their home star had collapsed, forcing them to invade other worlds for survival. But the Overmind had corrupted their intentions, turning conquest into genocide. Ilara stared at the holographic display, her fists clenched. Revenge had driven them this far, but now she faced a moral dilemma. Was destroying the Overmind truly justice, or would it doom the remaining Varith civilians? As the ship orbited the shattered remains of Earth, the weight of leadership pressed heavily on her shoulders. She knew one thing for certain. Every decision they made from here on out would shape humanity's future, and perhaps the fate of 2 species. "Prepare for another drop," Ilara ordered finally. "We're going back down there. This time, we find the resistance." The second drop onto Earth's surface was tense. The team landed near coordinates provided by the freed hybrids, who claimed a hidden resistance enclave existed in the ruins. Commander Ilara Voss led the group cautiously, her weapon ready but her mind heavy with doubt. Could they truly trust these hybrids, or were they walking into another trap set by the Overmind? As they moved through the labyrinthine ruins, Cal Draven muttered under his breath, "This feels like a bad idea. These resistance fighters could just be waiting to ambush us. Then why would they bother helping us at all?" Lyra Kane countered sharply. She adjusted her scanner, trying to pick up any signs of life ahead. "If they wanted us dead, they'd have let the Overmind handle it." "They're probably using us," Kel shot back, his voice low but edged with frustration. Ilara held up a hand to silence them both. "Enough. We're here now. Let's see what we're dealing with before jumping to conclusions." They soon reached a massive underground chamber concealed beneath layers of collapsed debris. A dim blue light illuminated the space, revealing dozens of hybrids gathered around makeshift barricades and equipment. Unlike the ones controlled by the Overmind, these beings appeared more human-like, less distorted, their eyes clear and alert. At the center stood a tall figure clad in patched armor, his face marked with scars, but his expression resolute. "I'm Karis," he said as the team approached. His voice carried authority, yet there was a weariness behind it. "You've fought the Overmind. That makes you either brave or foolish." Ilara stepped forward, meeting his gaze evenly. "We're here because we want to stop it. Permanently." Karis studied her for a moment before nodding slowly. "Good, because if we don't destroy the Overmind, it will consume everything, including your kind." He gestured toward the others. "We call ourselves the Freeborn. We've resisted the Overmind for decades, hiding in its shadow while plotting its downfall. But we can't do it alone. Its power is too vast, its reach too far." Lyra stepped closer, her curiosity piqued. "How do you plan to fight something like that?" Karis pointed to a holographic map projected on a nearby wall. It displayed several glowing nodes scattered across Earth's surface. "These are the Overmind's core hubs. If we disable enough of them simultaneously, we can destabilize its control network. But it won't be easy. Each hub is heavily guarded, and the Overmind will retaliate with overwhelming force." Renfellows crossed his arms, studying the map skeptically. "Even if we manage to hit all these targets, how do we know this will actually kill it?" "It won't," Karis admitted bluntly. "But it'll weaken it enough for us to strike directly at its central core, the heart of the Overmind itself." Ilara frowned. "And where is this core located?" "Deep underground," Karis replied grimly. "In a fortress built into the planet's crust. Getting there will require every resource we have. And even then, survival isn't guaranteed." Kale let out a sharp laugh. "Sounds like a suicide mission." "Maybe," Karis said, his tone unwavering. "But staying hidden while the Overmind spreads beyond Earth is no better. Are you with us, or not?" Ilara hesitated only briefly before nodding. "We're with you. Tell us what we need to do." Over the next few hours, the team worked alongside the Freeborn to prepare for the assault. Weapons were distributed, strategies planned, and escape routes mapped. Lyra spent time speaking with some of the hybrids, learning about their struggles and gaining insight into the Overmind's tactics. Rin tinkered with EMP devices, enhancing their range to disrupt the alien tech guarding the hubs. Meanwhile, Ilara found herself reflecting on the gravity of their decision. By allying with the Freeborn, they weren't just fighting for humanity. They were fighting for every being enslaved by the Overmind. Revenge still burned within her, but now it was tempered by something else. Hope. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the ruins, the combined forces prepared to launch their attack. Karis stood beside Ilara, his scared face illuminated by the faint glow of their weapons. "This is our chance," he said quietly. "For freedom. For everyone." Ilara nodded, her resolve hardening. "Let's finish this." With that, the strike teams moved out, disappearing into the darkness. Ahead lay danger unlike anything they'd faced before, but also the possibility of redemption. The assault on the Overmind's hubs began under the cover of Earth's eternal twilight, the ruins bathed in an eerie glow from the pulsating alien structures. Each strike team moved with precision, their weapons humming softly as they approached their designated targets. Commander Ilara Voss led her group alongside Karis and a squad of freeborn fighters, their movements synchronized despite the chaos erupting around them. As they neared the first hub, a towering spire encased in writhing organic tendrils, Ilara felt a strange unease creep into her mind. The air seemed heavier here, charged with energy that made her skin prickle. She glanced at Lyra Kane, who was scanning the structure intently. "What are you picking up?" Ilara asked, her voice low. "Energy readings are off the charts," Lyra replied, her eyes glued to her scanner. "But there's something else. Fragments of data leaking out of the Overmind's network. It's like pieces of its consciousness are breaking free." Before Ilara could respond, Cal Draven signaled for silence. Ahead, a patrol of hybrid guards emerged from the shadows, their glowing white eyes locking onto the intruders. Without hesitation, Kale opened fire, his plasma rifle cutting through the air. The battle erupted instantly, the hybrids lashing out with unnatural speed and strength. The Freeborn fought fiercely, their familiarity with the Overmind's tactics giving them an edge. Amidst the chaos, Lyra noticed something peculiar. One of the fallen hybrids twitched slightly, its body convulsing as if trying to fight off some invisible force. She knelt beside it cautiously, her scanner analyzing its neural activity. "It's resisting," she murmured. "Even now, it's trying to break free." "What does that mean?" Rin Fellows asked, crouching nearby while keeping an eye on their surroundings. "It means the Overmind isn't invincible," Lyra said, her voice tinged with awe. "These hybrids, they're not just tools. They're prisoners, forced to obey against their will." Ilara processed this revelation as the last of the guards fell. "Then we're not just fighting a monster. We're freeing victims." With the path cleared, the team breached the hub. Inside, the chamber pulsed with sickly green light, tendrils snaking across the walls and ceiling. At the center stood a massive node, its surface etched with intricate patterns that shifted unnervingly. As Ren set up charges to disable it, Ilara noticed fragments of the Overmind's consciousness flickering in the air, distorted images and whispers that painted a horrifying picture. She saw flashes of another world, one consumed by fire and ash. She heard voices screaming in agony, pleading for mercy. And then she understood. The Varith hadn't destroyed Earth out of malice. They were desperate. Their home star had collapsed, leaving them no choice but to invade other planets for survival. But the Overmind had twisted their intentions, turning conquest into genocide. "They didn't start this," Ilara whispered, her fists clenched tightly. "They were victims too." Karis stepped beside her, his expression grim. "Doesn't matter. What matters is stopping the Overmind before it spreads further." Rin activated the charges, and the node exploded in a burst of light and heat. For a moment, the room shook violently, and the tendrils recoiled as if in pain. Then silence fell. Back outside, the team regrouped with the others. Reports came in. Each hub had been successfully disabled, weakening the Overmind significantly. But victory felt hollow. Lyra voiced what everyone was thinking. "If we destroy the Overmind completely, what happens to the Varith? Without it, they'll lose control of their empire, and maybe even their survival." Ilara stared at the horizon, where faint traces of Earth's former beauty still lingered beneath the devastation. Revenge had driven them this far, but now she faced a moral dilemma. Was justice truly black and white, or were there shades of gray? "We'll deal with that when the time comes," Ilara said finally. "For now, we finish what we started." The team prepared to descend deeper into Earth's crust, toward the Overmind's central core. Ahead lay answers, and perhaps redemption. The journey to the Overmind's central core was a descent into nightmare. The team followed Karis and the Freeborn through treacherous tunnels carved deep into Earth's crust, their path illuminated by bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls. The air grew hotter and heavier with each step, carrying a metallic tang that made breathing feel like inhaling fire. Above them, the ruins of Earth's surface faded into distant memory. Below, the oppressive weight of the Overmind's presence loomed closer. Commander Ilara Voss led the group, her weapon drawn but her mind racing. Every step felt heavier, not just from the physical strain but from the moral burden she carried. Destroying the Overmind would free humanity and the hybrids, but it might also doom the remaining Varith civilians. Could they justify wiping out an entire species, even one responsible for Earth's destruction? She clenched her jaw, pushing aside the doubts for now. They had to focus on survival first. "This is as far as we go without encountering resistance," Karis said abruptly, stopping near a massive cavern entrance. Beyond lay a sprawling underground facility pulsating with alien energy. Towering spires of organic material stretched toward the ceiling, glowing faintly with sickly green light. In the center stood the Overmind's core, a colossal structure resembling a twisted heart, its surface covered in writhing tendrils that seemed alive. Rin examined the facility with a critical eye. Those spires, they're power conduits. If we can disable them, we'll cripple the core's defenses. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Cal Draven asked, his tone laced with skepticism. He gestured toward the dozens of hybrid guardians patrolling the area. We've got enough trouble dealing with those things. Ilara turned to Lyra Kane, who had been studying the architecture intently. Can you find a way to disrupt the spires remotely? Lyra nodded hesitantly. I think so. But I'll need time and cover. Then we'll give you both, Ilara said firmly. Turning to the team, she outlined the plan. Karis, take half the freeborn and draw their attention. Kale, Rin, and I will hold the perimeter while Lyra works. Once the spires are down, we move in together. Karis gave a sharp nod and signaled his team to advance. With disciplined precision, they launched a diversionary attack, drawing the hybrids away from the core. Gunfire erupted as Kale and Rin provided suppressive fire, keeping the enemy at bay, while Lyra set up her equipment near one of the spires. As Lyra worked, fragments of the Overmind's consciousness began leaking into her mind. Images of devastation, cries of pain, and flashes of the Varith Queen pleading for survival. Her hands trembled slightly, but she forced herself to focus. Almost there, she muttered under her breath. Suddenly, the ground shook violently as the Overmind retaliated. Tendrils lashed out, slamming into the walls and sending debris raining down. One of the freeborn fighters was caught in the chaos, crushed beneath falling rubble. Karis shouted orders, rallying his team to push forward despite the mounting losses. Done! Lyra exclaimed, hitting the final sequence on her device. The spires shuddered, their glow dimming as they collapsed inward. The core's defenses faltered, its tendrils recoiling in apparent agony. Ilara motioned for the team to regroup. Now or never. They charged toward the core, dodging attacks from the remaining hybrids. As they reached the base of the structure, Rin planted explosives strategically, ensuring maximum damage. But before he could arm them, a shadowy figure emerged from the core itself, a towering amalgamation of flesh and metal, its glowing eyes locking onto the intruders. The Overmind. Karis hissed, raising his weapon. Ilara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. This ends here. The creature roared, its psychic energy rippling outward. The battle for Earth's soul had begun. The Overmind's manifestation loomed over them, a grotesque fusion of organic flesh and alien machinery, its body pulsating with veins of glowing energy. Its eyes burned like twin suns, radiating an intelligence both ancient and merciless. The air crackled with psychic force as it let out a deafening roar, shaking the very foundation of the cavern. Commander Ilara Voss tightened her grip on her weapon, her heart pounding in her chest. Stay focused, she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. We can't let it overwhelm us. Cal Draven fired a volley of plasma bolts, the shots striking the creature's armored hide, but barely leaving a mark. This thing's tougher than anything we've faced before, he growled, ducking behind cover as one of its tendrils lashed out, narrowly missing him. Lyra Kane scrambled to recalibrate her scanner, trying to pinpoint a weakness. Its core, it's generating too much energy. If we don't disrupt it, it'll tear us apart. She glanced at Rin, who was frantically arming the explosives around the base of the structure. Rin, hurry. We're running out of time. I'm working as fast as I can. Rin snapped back, his hands trembling as he connected the final detonator. But before he could finish, the Overmind unleashed another wave of psychic energy, sending shockwaves rippling through the chamber. The team staggered, their minds assaulted by visions, memories of Earth's destruction, cries of pain, and flashes of the Varith Queen pleading for mercy. Ilara gritted her teeth, forcing herself to resist the mental onslaught. Don't listen to it, she yelled. It's trying to break us. Karis and the freeborn fighters launched a desperate counterattack, drawing the Overmind's attention away from the others. They hurled EMP grenades, causing its tendrils to spasm violently. For a brief moment, the creature faltered, its glow dimming slightly. It was enough. "Now, Rin," Ilara commanded. With a final twist of his tool, Rin activated the explosives. The charges detonated in a chain reaction, sending fiery blasts spiraling up the core's structure. The Overmind reared back, its form writhing in agony as chunks of its body disintegrated into ash. But it wasn't dead. Not yet. Summoning the last of its strength, the creature reached out with a massive tendril, grabbing Lyra and lifting her off the ground. She screamed, struggling against its grip as her scanner fell from her hands and shattered on the floor. "Let her go," Kel roared, charging forward with reckless abandon. He fired repeatedly at the tendril until it finally released Lyra, dropping her to the ground. Karis rushed to her side, pulling her to safety as the Overmind turned its wrath toward Kale. Ilara saw her chance. Grabbing a discarded EMP charge, she sprinted toward the creature's exposed core. With every ounce of determination, she hurled the device directly into its pulsating center. The explosion lit up the cavern, blinding everyone momentarily. When the light faded, the Overmind's towering form collapsed, dissolving into nothingness. The psychic pressure lifted, leaving behind an eerie silence. The team stood frozen, their bodies battered but alive. Rin broke the quiet, his voice hoarse. Is it over?" Ilara looked around, her expression unreadable. "For now." But as they began to regroup, Lyra spoke up, her voice trembling. "The terraforming engine, it's still active. This facility wasn't just a weapon. It was designed to rebuild Earth." Ilara's eyes widened. "Then we didn't destroy everything. There's still hope." Karis nodded solemnly. "Hope isn't enough. If we want to restore this planet and coexist with the Verith, we'll need more than survival. We'll need trust." As the survivors stared at the remnants of the Overmind's lair, they realized their fight wasn't truly over. Justice had been served, but the future remained uncertain. Together, they would have to decide what kind of world they wanted to create, one built on revenge or redemption. The cavern was eerily quiet now, the oppressive weight of the Overmind's presence replaced by a fragile sense of calm. Commander Ilara Voss stood amidst the ruins of its core, her weapon lowered but her mind still racing. The battle had been won, but the cost weighed heavily on her shoulders. Echo's sacrifice, the fallen freeborn fighters, and the countless lives lost over millennia. Yet as she looked around at the remnants of Earth's shattered beauty, something stirred within her. Hope. Lyra Kane knelt beside the terraforming engine, her hands trembling as she examined its controls. "It's damaged," she said, her voice tinged with both frustration and awe. "But it can still work. If we stabilize it, we might be able to heal Earth, bring back the oceans, the forests, everything." Rin Fellows joined her, his engineering expertise kicking in. "We'll need time and resources, but if this thing works like I think it does, we could see green skies again in our lifetimes." Cal Draven leaned against a nearby wall, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "And what about the Verith? Do we just let them walk away after everything they've done?" Ilara turned to face him, her expression firm but compassionate. "Not all of them were responsible for Earth's destruction. The Overmind corrupted their empire, twisted their survival instincts into genocide. If we want to move forward, we have to choose forgiveness over hatred." Before Kel could respond, Karis stepped forward, his scared face illuminated by the faint glow of the terraforming engine. "Forgiveness is easier said than done," he admitted. "But maybe humanity and the hybrids can help each other rebuild. Together, we could create something better than either of us had before." As the team worked to stabilize the engine, a transmission crackled through their comms, a desperate plea from a young Verith queen aboard a nearby ship. Her voice was soft but resolute. Please, the overmind is gone, but without its control, our people are lost. We don't want war. We never did. Help us find another way. Ilara exchanged glances with her team. For so long, revenge had driven them. Now, faced with the choice between destruction and coexistence, she knew what they had to do. "Tell your people to stand down," she replied. "We'll offer aid, but only if you promise peace." The queen hesitated, then answered, her tone filled with gratitude. "You have my word. Thank you." Over the following weeks, the survivors of the Eos worked alongside the Freeborn and the Verith to repair the terraforming engine. Slowly but surely, Earth began to heal. Rivers flowed once more, vegetation spread across barren lands, and the skies cleared to reveal stars that hadn't shone brightly in thousands of years. Ilara stood on a hill overlooking the reborn landscape, her heart swelling with pride and sorrow. Humanity had returned home, not as conquerors or avengers, but as builders. They had paid for this second chance with blood and sacrifice, but it was worth it. Behind her, Lyra approached, holding out a small sapling she'd found growing near the ruins. "This is the first plant to grow naturally in centuries," she said softly, "a symbol of what we can achieve when we work together." Ilara took the sapling gently, planting it firmly in the soil. As she stepped back, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Revenge had brought them here, but redemption would guide them forward. The sun rose over Earth's horizon, casting golden light across the land. It wasn't perfect. It would take generations to fully restore the planet. But it was a start. And as the crew of the Eos prepared to settle their home once more, they vowed never to let hatred consume them again. For the first time in 3,000 years, there was hope. Earth lived.